Laziness is not just about sitting around doing nothing. It is not merely about resting on a couch, scrolling endlessly, or delaying work until tomorrow. Laziness is far more dangerous than people realize, because it doesn't always announce itself with dramatic gestures. It creeps in quietly, like a thief in the night, and it robs you of the very thing you cannot buy back, your time. And when time is gone, opportunity is gone. And when opportunity is gone, destiny itself begins to slip out of your hands. See, most people imagine that their greatest enemy is failure. They think the thing holding them back is rejection, lack of resources, or the challenges of life. But I want to tell you today that for many, the real enemy is not out there, it's in here. Laziness is a silent assassin. It whispers, "You can do it tomorrow." It says, "You deserve a break," even when you've done nothing yet worth breaking from. It convinces you that comfort is harmless, that delay is acceptable, and that rest without progress is somehow earned. And before you know it, years have passed, and you are standing in the same place you stood before, wondering why nothing has changed. What makes laziness so destructive is that it disguises itself as something innocent. You don't notice the damage while it's happening. When a person is lazy, they're not necessarily in open rebellion against their purpose. They're just choosing ease over effort, comfort over challenge. And at first glance, that doesn't look like rebellion, it just looks like living. But over time, those small choices accumulate, and destiny is not stolen in one moment, it is drained slowly, one wasted hour at a time. Psychologists talk about the concept of drift, the idea that people rarely crash all at once. Instead, they slowly drift off course until they are completely lost. Laziness is the fuel of drift. You wake up and say, "I'll start tomorrow." Then tomorrow becomes next week. Then next week becomes next year. And before you know it, what was once possible is no longer within reach, because time has moved forward, but you have not. That's the tragedy of laziness. It doesn't simply hold you still. It pushes you backward, because life does not wait. Philosophers have long debated the purpose of human existence, but nearly all of them agree on one thing: life is motion. To live is to grow, to expand, to stretch into something more. And laziness violates that very principle. Laziness says, stay where you are. Laziness says, don't push, don't grow, don't rise. And when you accept that lie, you're not just wasting a day, you're betraying your very nature, you're calling your design. Now here's the truth. Destiny doesn't die with a bang, it dies with a whisper. It dies when you ignore your alarm clock one too many times. It dies when you spend your evenings lost in entertainment rather than investing in your mind or your future. It dies when you keep saying, someday, but never make today the day you act. That's why laziness is so dangerous. It doesn't feel deadly until it's too late. So I want you to look at your life with sober eyes. What has laziness already stolen from you? Think about the goals you once had, the dreams you once believed in, the vision you once carried so passionately. Where are they now? Did they die because you weren't capable? Or did they die because you chose comfort instead of commitment? Laziness is a thief. And the saddest part is that most people open the door and let it walk right in. But here's the good news. You can kill laziness before it kills your destiny. And killing laziness doesn't start with giant leaps. It starts with decisive steps. It begins when you refuse to let another day slip, by without movement. It begins when you tell yourself, my future is worth more than my comfort. My purpose is worth more than my excuses. Because laziness has no power over a person who understands the value of time and the weight of destiny. And I'll leave you with this. The greatest tragedy in life is not death. The greatest tragedy is to live and never become what you were created to be. Laziness is the assassin that makes that tragedy real. Don't let it steal from you any longer. Kill laziness, or it will kill your destiny. Desire is not enough. You can want success. You can crave greatness. You can dream of a better future. But desire without discipline is nothing more than a wish. It's air. It's vapor. It's an image in the mind that never becomes reality. And too many people confuse wanting something with working for something. They think the fire of their desire will somehow be enough to carry them through. But the truth is, desire is a spark. It can ignite you, but only discipline will sustain you. Think about it. How many people do you know who desire to be in better shape? Almost everyone wants it. They buy the gym membership. They follow fitness pages. They even talk about their goals with friends. But how many actually show up day after day, whether they feel like it or not? Very few. Because desire is easy, discipline is hard. Desire excites you in the moment. Discipline keeps you when the moment has passed. You see, laziness dies not when you feel motivated, but when you've trained yourself to act beyond your feelings. That's the battlefield. Your emotions will say, stay comfortable. Stay in bed, stay in the familiar. Desire listens to feelings, but discipline listens to commitment. Discipline says, I move because I must. I push because I said I would. I follow through because my destiny is too valuable to gamble with comfort. Philosophically, this is the difference between impulse and principle. Impulse is tied to desire. It's reactive. It shifts depending on mood. It looks for the path of least resistance. Principle, on the other hand, is rooted in discipline. It doesn't ask how you feel. It reminds you of who you are and what you stand for. And the people who build legacies, who change their lives, who fulfill their God-given calling, those are people of principle, not just passion. Psychology tells us that habits shape destiny more than intentions ever could. Why? Because the brain follows patterns. When you repeat an action long enough, it carves a pathway in your mind until it becomes automatic. That's why discipline feels so difficult at first. You're cutting a new trail through the wilderness of your own resistance. But once the path is there, once the habit is set, discipline begins to carry you even when motivation has run dry. Desire starts the journey, but discipline builds the road. This is why the lazy never win. They think they can wait until they feel like it, but feelings are fleeting. You'll never always feel like doing what's necessary. You'll never always feel like making the sacrifice, showing up early, staying up late, putting in the hours when everyone else has gone home. And if you wait on desire, you'll wait forever. But discipline doesn't consult your emotions. It shows up regardless. It ties your actions to your values, not your moods. There's also a deeper spiritual truth. Here, discipline is stewardship. The time you've been given, the talents inside you, the opportunities around you, those are gifts. Discipline is how you honor those gifts. To waste them in laziness or to depend on fleeting desire is to treat something sacred as casual. But discipline says, I will guard what I've been given. I will multiply it. I will not bury it in the ground because I was too tired, too distracted, too undisciplined to act. So ask yourself, what kind of life do you want? One dictated by your impulses, or one built on your principles? One that rises and falls with desire, or one that stands firm on discipline? Because desire will tell you what you want, but discipline will tell you what you're willing to pay. Desire imagines the vision, discipline builds it brick by brick, day by day, until the vision is reality. And here's the part many people don't realize. Once you embrace discipline, freedom follows. See, the undisciplined think they are free because they can do whatever they want. But they are slaves to procrastination, to laziness, to excuses. True freedom is not doing whatever you want whenever you want. True freedom is having mastery over yourself, the ability to command your own body and mind, to obey your higher calling. That is freedom. That is strength. So let me leave you with this. Desire will inspire you, but discipline will define you. Don't just dream, decide. Don't just want work. Kill laziness, not with passion alone, but with the daily practice of discipline. Because discipline is the bridge between who you are now and who you were created to become. If laziness is the silent killer of destiny, and discipline is the weapon that defeats it, then we must also understand where the real war is being fought. The battlefield is not your calendar, it's not your schedule, it's not even your physical energy. The battlefield is your mind. Before laziness ever shows up in your actions, it starts as a thought. Before discipline ever becomes a habit, it begins as a decision in the mind. Everything rises and falls here, in the unseen world of your thinking. Think about how laziness actually operates. It doesn't grab you by the shoulders and force you back into bed. It doesn't physically chain you to the couch. No, what happens is much simpler and much more dangerous. A thought enters your mind. I'll do it later. Another thought says, I deserve a break. Another whispers, it's not that serious. And those thoughts, if not confronted, begin to shape your reality. The body only obeys the instructions the mind believes. This is why the fight against laziness is primarily a mental fight. Psychologists talk about cognitive distortions, little lies we tell ourselves that justify behavior. Laziness thrives on these distortions. You say, I work better under pressure, but really you're just avoiding responsibility until the last possible moment. You say, I'll start tomorrow, but tomorrow never arrives because tomorrow always disguises itself as today. You say, I'm too tired. I'll do it when I have more energy. But the truth is, energy comes from movement, not from waiting. The mind convinces you of comfort, and the body simply follows. This is why scripture and philosophy alike emphasize the power of the mind. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Your life is a reflection of your dominant thoughts. If your mind is filled with excuses, distractions, and comfort-seeking narratives, then your actions will reveal that. But if your mind is trained, disciplined, renewed daily, then your actions will align with your purpose. Let's make it practical. Every time laziness attacks, it doesn't begin with a nap or a delay. It begins with a sentence you tell yourself. And the most dangerous thing is that those sentences sound reasonable. Laziness rarely speaks in outright rebellion. It speaks in soothing tones, convincing you that avoidance is wisdom, that delay is strategy, that inaction is harmless. If you're not vigilant, you will believe the lie. That's why the mind is the true battlefield. Because if laziness can win the war of thought, it has already won the war of action. Philosophically, this is the tension between freedom and slavery. A person whose mind is undisciplined is a slave, even if their body looks free, because every choice is already being manipulated by unchallenged thoughts. But a person whose mind is renewed, guarded, and directed becomes free. Free to choose, free to resist, free to move toward destiny instead of being chained by comfort. This is why discipline must be anchored in thought before it can be manifested in action. You can set goals, you can make plans, you can write affirmations, but if your mind still entertains excuses, you will sabotage yourself. You can kill laziness physically for a day, but unless you kill it mentally, it will return tomorrow. Victory has to be won in the mind first. And here's the deeper truth. Your mind doesn't just shape your actions. It shapes your identity. If you tell yourself long enough that you are lazy, weak, or unmotivated, you will live out that prophecy. But if you train your mind to see yourself as capable, disciplined, and driven by purpose, you will begin to act in alignment with that identity. This is not just positive thinking. It's psychological reality. Identity governs behavior. Who you believe you are in your mind determines what you consistently do with your life. So the question is, what kind of conversations are happening in your head? Are you strengthening the enemy with excuses? Or are you feeding discipline with truth? Because the mind can either be the birthplace of laziness or the breeding ground of greatness. It all depends on what you allow to take root. And I'll leave you with this. The most important real estate you'll ever own is the 6 inches between your ears. If you win here, you'll win everywhere. Guard your thoughts. Discipline your mind, and refuse to let laziness live in your head rent-free. Because once you conquer your mind, your destiny is unstoppable. When people think about laziness or failure, they often imagine some dramatic collapse, a massive decision that destroys everything in an instant. But that's not how it usually happens. Most of the time, the downfall doesn't begin with a big moment. It begins with a small compromise. It begins with one excuse, one delay, one, I'll do it tomorrow. And while that one choice might not seem dangerous in the moment, it is the seed of regret that will grow larger and larger if left unchecked. See, destiny rarely collapses all at once. It erodes. It erodes with every little compromise, with every time you choose comfort instead of commitment, with every time you silence your conscience and allow yourself to believe that one missed step won't make a difference. But it does. One skipped day turns into 2. 2 skipped days turn into a month. Before long, you are looking back at years of lost time, wondering how you ended up so far from where you thought you would be. And the tragedy is that it doesn't feel dangerous at first. The danger of compromise is its subtlety. The first time you hit the snooze button, it feels harmless. The first time you put off that assignment, it feels manageable. The first time you silence the inner voice that pushes you toward excellence, it feels like nothing. But every small act of avoidance makes the next one easier. And before you know it, you've trained yourself to choose regret over responsibility. Philosophers have long warned about this human tendency. Aristotle said, "We are what we repeatedly do." That means greatness is not one giant decision. It is the sum of small decisions made consistently over time. And failure is the same. You don't suddenly fail, you drift into it, one compromise at a time. The small things you think don't matter are the very things that shape your character, and your character shapes your destiny. Think about the psychology of habit. When you make a small compromise, your brain registers it as acceptable. You've told yourself, this is okay. And the next time, the resistance is lower. That's why bad habits grow so easily, and good habits take so much effort. Compromise is like lowering your defenses. Once the gate is open, the enemy can walk right in. Laziness doesn't need a wide doorway. It just needs a crack. Now, here's where it gets painful. When you compromise today, you don't feel the regret immediately. You might even feel relief. You get to rest, to relax, to escape responsibility for the moment. But regret is delayed pain. It doesn't show up today. It shows up later, when the opportunity has passed, when the deadline has expired, when the season has closed. That's when it hits. You realize that what felt harmless in the moment was actually the very decision that robbed you of progress, of growth, of destiny. And regret is heavier than effort. Effort is hard in the moment, but regret weighs on you for years. Effort costs you time and energy right now, but regret costs you peace, confidence, and fulfillment in the long run. You can recover from effort, but it's much harder to recover from a life filled with what ifs. So the question you must ask yourself daily is simple. Are the small choices I'm making today leading me toward fulfillment, or are they planting seeds of regret? Every compromise is a seed, and every seed grows. You can't plant laziness and expect a harvest of greatness. You can't sow excuses and expect a life of purpose. Life is cause and effect, seed and harvest, input and output. Small compromises produce big regrets, just as small acts of discipline produce big rewards. Don't be deceived into thinking that today's choice doesn't matter. It all matters. Every time you choose to rise when you'd rather sleep, to focus when you'd rather drift, to push when you'd rather quit, you are building a foundation that will carry you forward. And every time you compromise, you're cracking that foundation piece by piece. So I challenge you, stop excusing the small things. Stop telling yourself it's not a big deal, because the small things are the big deal. They are the building blocks of your destiny. Protect them. Guard them. Choose discipline over compromise. And let me leave you with this. The pain of discipline lasts for a moment, but the pain of regret lasts for a lifetime. Don't trade your destiny for comfort. Don't sell your future for a small compromise today. Refuse to compromise, and you'll refuse to live with regret.